This is turning into a long season. We pretty much just got back from Colorado. Just like that, we're repacked, and now we're headed to the airport to go to Oregon.
We'd like to welcome you to Medford, where the local time is 11:35. Please stay seated with your seatbelt fastened on all carrying items shown when the captain has turned off the seatbelt sign. Be careful when opening the overhead bins to avoid injury from items that may have shifted during flight.
Some people look at this and it's easy to understand how they just get lost in Oregon's beautiful wilderness. Then you have some of us that can see through it and appreciate that it's also a live fire test bed for resilience. This place has to be one of the most resilient ham radio cultures in the entire country. And it's not just about gear. This place and people, they have a ton invested into their trade. From coastal towns to alpine ridges, Oregon hams operate like guerrilla engineers, DIY, decentralized, and always ready and progressive. In fact, the University of Oregon's N7DUX club just landed 2 ARL scholarships, and we all know how important growing the hobby is. And what they did, that's just not youth engagement, that's generational resilience. And you know, this channel is all about MCOM and emergency preparedness. As far as areas here in Oregon, well, they're all over the place. Booths at a state fair, drills in wildfire zones, and this is another state coming in strong with the weekly nets that are focused on training and topic-based information as opposed to just rag chew sessions. I love coming out west to these states and seeing what they have to offer, and usually find that in places like this, adventure seems to be the training grounds. You know, not too long ago when I was in Alaska, got to go out and chase a few summits. I learned something. The mountains, they don't care if you're connected. You either make contact or you don't. And that's one of the reasons that I really love SOTA. It's not just adventure, it's accountability. You're alone, exposed, and the only thing between you and silence is your signal discipline and maybe even possibly a little creativity. You know, it really induces some pressure to the whole field testing aspect that you don't always get other places. Oregon definitely gets that. Here, ham radio seems to be much more than a hobby. It seems to be embedded with their culture. And I feel like a lot of people say that, but you know, hear me out on this, on justifying this statement, because these guys are a decentralized, generational, emotionally invested network of operators who, from what I've gathered from talking to people, enjoy treating every drill like it's the real thing. And I know back home for me, just like probably a lot of you, it's constantly a struggle to get people to come out to ham radio events. And maybe that's because we're not being adventurous enough. I was shocked to hear that here, the W70 SOTA campout they did, that drew 70 operators to do hiking, HF ops, and all that translates to operations that would happen in the real world. And speaking of ham events, Oregon also hosts CPAC, which is the biggest ham convention in the Pacific Northwest. This year, they had 1,600 attendees consisting of a mix of seasoned operators, youth clubs, emergency coordinators, and just the gearheads that like to come out. And they also had Gordon West as the headliner. And if you aren't familiar with who he is, his call sign is WB6NOA, and he is one of the most influential educators and ambassadors in the world of amateur radio. As far as the seminar itself goes, they had 43 seminars ranging from repeater resilience to stealth antenna design, and there were also 2 standout workshops held there as well. The first was an MCOM and WinLink workshop led by Toby Claremont, and his call sign is KH7FR, and his Hawaii Clark County team. And I think what probably contributed to this being one of the standout seminars that was going on was the fact that this wasn't just a lecture. This was a hands-on training session that taught operators how to deploy WinLink for emergency responses. And the attendees that went even built and tested live stations. The other standout seminar was a DMR workshop that was packed to capacity. Casey Baldwin led a full day session on digital mobile radio, including live programming and field testing. And then beyond all that, another thing that's adding to Oregon's strong ham showing is there are new clubs popping up all over the place all the time. So most recently you just had the Oregon Youth Amateur Radio Club. There's also the Salem Repeater Group. There's the Central Coast ARC, and each one of these is a node in the resilience web. And a huge benefit of all these clubs popping up is that Oregon's terrain demands smart repeater placement. And with all of these clubs, they have linked systems that span valleys and coastlines. And with their demanding search and rescue needs, they utilize APRS to track those teams. And from what I gathered from talking to a bunch of different people, though, yes, ham radio has a great foundation here for all of the recreational needs, but it's obvious that emergency is the mission. So I had to ask myself, why does Oregon take all this so seriously? Because it has to. Coastal storms, wildfires, and snow for starters, plus the kicker, the Cascadia subduction zone. These guys are continually prepping for when a 9.0 plus quake hits, which they just say is waiting to happen. And I can attest to the fact that in rural and wilderness zones, like where I am right now, cell coverage is just a complete myth. But with over 20,000 licensed operators, Oregon ranks in the top 5 nationally. That's not a hobby. That's infrastructure. And a lot of ears listening out for when there is a crisis situation. And in the next video, I'm going to focus on is their ARES system, because it is one of the best that I have seen. And I have to say, Oregon proves that resilience isn't built in bunkers. It's built in networks. And I love seeing all of this in action. This community isn't just technical. It's emotionally invested in service, legacy, and readiness. This isn't just ham radio, it's tactical culture. And I gotta say, it is alive and well in Oregon. And with that, we'll see you on the next one. Be safe.